The explosion lit up space like a dying star. Admiral Kim Tae-ho watched from the bridge of the UE in defiance as another human ship broke apart under alien fire. Metal twisted and burned in the cold darkness. Bodies floated past his window, soldiers who would never see home again. "Sir, the Wellington is gone," reported his communications officer. Her voice shook. Captain Lee went down with his ship. Tae-ho closed his eyes for a moment. Captain Lee had been a good man, a father of 3. Now he was space dust, scattered among the stars near Proxima Centauri. Another name for the growing list of the dead. "How many ships do we have left?" Tae-ho asked. 12, sir. Maybe 11 if the Portland does not make it. 12 ships. 3 years ago, humanity had sent 200 vessels to defend this system. Now, only 12 remained. The math was simple and cruel. A Voltan Empire was winning this war, and winning it badly. The enemy fleet moved like sharks in dark water. Their ships were massive things, black as night, with red lights that pulsed like angry hearts. Each Voltan dreadnought was 3 times larger than the biggest human vessel. Their weapons cut through human armor like paper. Their shields turned human missiles into harmless fireworks. "Admiral," came another voice from the communication station. "We're getting a message from the Voltan flagship." "Put it on screen." The face that appeared made Tae-ho's stomach turn. Supreme Overlord Nextul looked like a nightmare given form. Gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. His eyes like black holes that seemed to swallow light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding metal. "Human Admiral Nextul said," and somehow he made the word human sound like an insult. "The Pethic fleet is finished. Your worlds burn. Your people die. It is time to accept what you have always known. You are weak. We are strong. This is the natural order." Tae-ho wanted to spit back angry words. He wanted to order his remaining ships to charge the alien fleet, but he had learned hard lessons in 3 years of war. Pride was a luxury humanity could no longer afford. "What do you want?" Tae-ho asked. Nextul's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. "Surrender, complete and total. Your government has 72 hours to contact us and accept our terms. All human military forces will stand down. All weapons will be destroyed. Your people would serve the Voltan Empire as we see fit, and if we refuse, then we will turn every human world into ash and memory." Starting with Earth, the transmission ended. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of failing systems. Somewhere in the distance, another human ship exploded. The light reflected off the faces of Tae-ho's crew. Young faces, tired faces, faces that had seen too much death. "Orders, sir?" asked his first officer. Tae-ho looked out at the alien fleet. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands, each one a floating fortress designed for one purpose: killing humans. Smart thing would be to run, okay? To save what little remained of the human fleet, to live to fight another day. But where could they run to? The Voltans had taken system after system. Human colonies fell like dominoes. Mars was under siege. The outer settlements had gone dark weeks ago. Soon, there would be nowhere left to hide. "Send a message to Earth," Tae-ho said, finally. "Tell them we are falling back. Tell them the Proxima system is lost." The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. Every day brought worse news. The Voltans had landed troops on Luna. Fighting raged in the asteroid belt. The orbital defense platforms around Earth were taking heavy damage. When the Defiance finally limped into Earth's solar system, Tae-ho could barely recognize his home. The planet looked wounded. Massive storms covered half the surface where alien weapons had boiled the oceans. The ice caps were melting. The atmosphere glowed with the wrong colors. Ships burned in orbit. Human ships. The orbital stations that had taken decades to build were twisted wreckage. The moon's surface was scarred with craters where cities used to stand. 2 billion people had lived on Luna just 6 months ago. Now the satellite was a graveyard. His communications officer said quietly, "We are getting a transmission from the surface. Priority Alpha. It is President Park Sojin." Taeho had met the president once, years ago, at a military ceremony. She had seemed strong then, confident. The woman who appeared on his screen now looked like she had aged 20 years in the past 6 months. Her hair was gray. Her eyes were hollow. She spoke from what looked like a bunker deep underground. "Admiral Kim," she said, and he could hear the exhaustion in her voice. "Okay, I'm glad you made it back. We need to talk." The meeting took place in a military facility buried 3 kilometers under the Colorado mountains. Taeho had to travel through tunnels that reeked of fear and desperation. The elevators were packed with refugees. Children cried for parents who would never come home. Old people stared at walls with empty eyes. President Park met him in a room that had no windows. The walls were covered with maps and charts that told the same story over and over. Red markers showed Voltan positions. Blue markers showed human forces. There was a lot more red than blue. "How bad is it?" Taeho asked. "Bad," Park said. She poured 2 cups of coffee from a machine that looked older than both of them. "The Voltans control 60% of human space. Our fleet is scattered. Our colonies are cut off. Earth itself is under siege. What about the other species? The Centauri Federation, the Trade Alliance?" Park's laugh was bitter. "They are distancing themselves from us as fast as they can. No one wants to be associated with the losing side. Some are even offering to help the Voltans if it means staying on their good side." Taeho sipped his coffee. It tasted like dirt, but it was warm. "So, we are alone. We have always been alone, Admiral. That is the human condition. We fight, we lose, we die, but we do not give up. The Voltans want an answer in 36 hours. I know, and I know what answer I have to give them." Something in her voice made Taeho look up. For just a moment, he saw something in the president's eyes. Not defeat, not despair, something else. Something that made him think of hunters waiting in tall grass. "Ma'am," he said. Park stood up and walked to one of the wall screens. She pressed her hand against a scanner. The screen flickered and showed something that made Taeho's breath catch in his throat. "Admiral," she said, and now her voice was steady, strong. "Let me tell you about a man named Dr. Lee Hansel, and let me tell you about Project Lazarus." Outside the bunker, alien ships filled the sky like metal vultures. They broadcast their victory to the stars. They demanded surrender. They promised slavery for those who lived and death for those who resisted, but deep underground. In rooms that did not officially exist, other conversations were taking place. Messages flew through quantum channels to destinations that were not on any star chart. Hidden bases that had been waiting in silence for 3 long years suddenly came alive. The Voltans thought they had won. Thy humanity was broken. They thought the war was over. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. Captain Yoon Minho crouched behind a pile of twisted metal that used to be a transport truck. The red dust of Mars swirled around him as Voltan patrol ships flew overhead. Their engines made a sound like screaming wind. He counted 12 ships in the formation. Heavy gunships with enough firepower to level a city block. "They are getting predictable," whispered Choi Yujin from beside him. The combat engineer had dirt on her face and a plasma rifle in her hands. Her eyes tracked the alien ships as they passed. Same patrol route, same timing, same formation. Minho smiled grimly. Predictable enemies are dead enemies. The Voltons had occupied Mars for 2 months now. They controlled the major cities and the spaceports. Their troops marched through the streets like they owned the place, according to their supreme overlord. They did. The humans were supposed to be broken, defeated, ready to serve their new masters. But the humans on Mars had not gotten that message. Minho pressed a button on his communication device. The signal went out on a frequency that officially did not exist. Within seconds, responses came back from 40 different locations across the planet. Resistant cells, hidden weapon caches, underground factories that kept working even while alien boots stomped on the ground above them. Phoenix Leader to all units, Minho said quietly into his microphone. The birds are flying their usual path. Time to clip some wings. What happened next would have surprised the Voltan commanders if they had lived long enough to think about it. The human resistance did not attack like desperate rebels. They did not use crude bombs or stolen weapons. They moved like a real military force. Surface-to-air missiles erupted from hidden launchers built into the Martian rocks. The missiles were not the crude things the Voltons expected from defeated humans. These were military-grade weapons with guidance systems that could track a coin in a dust storm. The first Voltan gunship died before its pilot even knew he was under attack. The missile punched through its hull like it was made of paper. Explosion lit up the rust-colored sky. The other pilots tried to scatter, but they were flying into a trap that had been weeks in the making. Jin had spent days calculating flight paths and weak points. Every missile launcher was positioned exactly where it needed to be. Every shot was planned down to the second. 11 more explosions painted the sky with fire and falling metal. "A target's down," reported Eugen. She was already packing up her equipment. No survivors, no witnesses. Minho nodded. This was how it had to be. Clean kills. No evidence left behind. The Voltans had to keep thinking the humans were just lucky rebels with stolen weapons. They could not know the truth. The truth was that Mars had never fallen at all, 3,000 kilometers away, in a bunker that the Voltans had never found. Dr. Lee Hansel watched the attack through hidden cameras. The man who had created Project Lazarus looked older than his 50 years. His hair was white and his hands shook slightly as he typed commands into his computer, but his mind was still sharp. Sharp enough to orchestrate the greatest deception in human history. "Quint 7 is complete," he said to the empty room. "All targets eliminated. Moving to phase 2. The room around him was filled with screens and blinking lights. Maps covered every wall. Not maps of Mars or Earth, but maps of star systems that most humans had never heard of. Secret bases, hidden fleets, weapon factories built in asteroids that did not officially exist. Hansel had been working on Project Lazarus for 15 years, long before the Voltans had declared war, long before the first human colony had burned. He had seen this day coming, when most people still believed aliens would be friendly neighbors. His fingers moved across the keyboard like a pianist playing a deadly song. Commands went out 2 bases scattered across dozens of star systems. Sleeper agents who had been waiting for years suddenly received their activation codes. Ships that had been hiding in dark space between the stars began to move. On Europa, Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of a ship that was supposed to be destroyed. The UN Defiance had been replaced by something much more dangerous. The UN Retribution was 3 times larger and carried weapons that could crack a moon in half. Tae-ho was not alone. Around him stood the captains of 200 other ships, ships that had been hiding in the ice caves of Europa for 2 years. Ships that the Voltans thought were scrap metal floating in space. "Gentlemen," Tae-ho said, looking at the faces of men and women who were supposed to be dead. "Ladies, it is time to go to work." The activation signal from Dr. Hansel reached every corner of human space at the speed of light. On worlds that the Vultans thought they controlled, humans began to move. Not as desperate rebels, but as soldiers who had been waiting for this moment. The machines came online first. Hidden factories that had been built inside asteroids began producing weapons and ships at rates that should have been impossible. Automated defense systems that had been sleeping in the dark began to wake up and stretch their metal claws. Agent Xiao Dawu received her signal while sitting in a meeting with Vultan fleet commanders. She had been playing the role of a defeated human diplomat for 6 months, begging for mercy, offering to help the aliens manage human populations, making herself seem weak and pathetic. The Vultans had no idea that she could kill every one of them in the room with her bare hands. "Honored Overlord," she said to the Vultan general across the table, "I have just received word from our remaining colonial governors. They are ready to discuss the tribute payments you requested." The general's black eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Excellent. The human species learns quickly when properly motivated." Dawu smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Oh, yes, honored one. We learn very quickly indeed." Back on Mars, Captain Minho and Engineer Eugen made their way through underground tunnels that connected half the planet. The tunnels had been built during the first wave of colonization 50 years ago. The Vultans knew some of them existed, but they had no idea how extensive the network really was. "Status report," Minho said as they reached a hidden command center. "All surface installations are secure," came the reply from a dozen different voices. "Vultan ground forces are contained in the cities. Air patrols have been neutralized. We control 70% of the planet." "What about the spaceport?" "Ready for phase 2, sir? Just give the word." Minho looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed Vultan positions. Blue dots showed human forces. There were a lot more blue dots than the aliens realized. The humans had been hiding in plain sight for months, pretending to be defeated while they prepared for this moment. "All units," he said into his communication device. "This is Phoenix Leader. Execute phase 2. Show them what defeated looks like." Across Mars, humans emerged from hiding places that the Vultans had never found. They carried weapons that the aliens had never seen. They moved with coordination that spoke of months of planning and preparation. The Vultan occupation forces suddenly found themselves surrounded, outgunned, and completely cut off from reinforcement. Their communications were jammed. Their ships were destroyed. Their carefully planned invasion had become a trap. But Mars was just the beginning. On Earth, President Park Sojin stood before a communication array that reached across the galaxy. She had waited 3 years to send this message. 3 years of watching her people die while she prepared for this moment. "This is President Park Sojin of the United Earth Nations," she said, her voice carrying to every human installation in known space. "Operation Lazarus is now active. K. All units are cleared to engage. K. Show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity with extinction." The message reached Admiral Tejo as his fleet left Europa's orbit. It reached Captain Minho as his forces stormed at the Vultan command center on Mars. It reached Agent Dawu as she dropped her mask of defeat and showed the Vultan generals what a human really looked like when they stopped pretending to be weak. And in his hidden bunker, Dr. Hanzal watched as 15 years of preparation finally bore fruit. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their courage. It was their ability to make their enemies believe they had already won. Supreme Overlord Nextul slammed his fist against the command table so hard that the metal dented. Around him, his officers flinched like beaten dogs. The holographic display showed the same impossible numbers over and over again. 47 Vultan ships destroyed in the past week, 63 ground installations overrun, 12 entire colonies cut off from communication. Explain this to me, Nexthul snarled, his voice like grinding stone. How are these defeated humans killing our forces faster than we can count our dead? Fleet Commander Victor shifted nervously. Kai had commanded Voltan fleets for 30 years and conquered dozens of species. None of them had ever fought back like this. My lord, our intelligence suggests the humans had hidden reserves, forces we did not detect during our initial assault. Hidden reserves, his black eyes fixed on the commander. We spent 3 years mapping every human installation. We tracked every ship. We counted every soldier. Where were these reserves hiding? Nobody answered. Nobody had an answer. The truth was becoming clear to those Voltan officers smart enough to see it. They had not been fighting humanity's real military for 3 years. They had been fighting shadows and lies while the real enemy prepared for war. On the bridge of his flagship, Nexthul pulled up the recordings of human fleet engagements from the past 3 years. He watched the battles again with new eyes. Human ships moved wrong. They fought like they were trying to lose. Their tactics made no sense unless you understood they were designed to fail. These ships, he said slowly, pointing at the display. Look at their formations. Look at how they engage our forces. They are not trying to win. They are trying to learn. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Every battle had been a test. Every human defeat had been a lesson. For 3 years, humanity had been studying vaulting tactics, technology, pretending to be desperate and weak. Get me a prisoner, Nexthul ordered, a high-ranking human officer. I want answers. A prisoner they brought him was Captain Li Jinwu. Was captured during the defense of a research station near Titan. The human had been beaten and questioned for hours, but his eyes still held defiance. He sat across from Nexthul in chains that could hold a war beast. Your species interests me, human, Nexthul said. You fight like warriors, but you plan like cowards. All this deception, all these lies, is this how humans always wage war? Jinwu smiled through blood-stained lips. Only when we are serious about winning. You cannot win. We have a larger fleet, the better technology, the superior numbers. Do you? Jinwu asked. Are you sure about that? Something in the human's voice made Nexthul pause. Alas, no fear there, no desperation. It's just calm certainty, like a man who knew a secret that would soon be revealed. What do you know? Nexthul demanded. I know that you have been fighting the wrong war, Jinwu said. For 3 years, you have been defeating our training fleet, while our real military watched and learned. Every battle you won taught us something new about how you fight. Every victory you celebrated gave us more data about your weaknesses. Nexthul felt something cold crawl up his spine. Impossible. We tracked your shipyards, your factories, your military bases. The ones we let you find, yes. But tell me, Overlord, how many human colonies have you actually conquered? How many human worlds have you really controlled? The question hit like a hammer blow. Nexthul pulled up the tactical displays, counting occupied worlds. The numbers were smaller than they should be. Much smaller. You see, Jinwu continued, humans are very good at hiding things. We have been preparing for this war longer than you have been planning it. Every colony you think you control still has humans living underground. Every world you occupy still has our people moving through tunnels you never found. We have been watching you, learning from you, preparing. Agent Seo Dewu sat in the Voltan command center and listened to the growing panic around her. For 6 months, she had played the role of a broken human diplomat, weak, desperate, eager to please her alien masters. The Voltans had trusted her with access to their communication networks, their strategic planning, their deepest military secrets. They had no idea she had been feeding everything to human intelligence. The humans are using weapons we have never seen before, reported one Voltan officer. Energy signatures that do not match anything in our databases. Their ships move faster than our projections indicated, said another. Their armor resists our weapons better than it should. Dawu hid her smile. Of course, the human technology was better now. They had been reverse engineering captured Fulton equipment for 3 years. Every alien weapon that fell into human hands had been studied, improved, and mass-produced in hidden factories. Perhaps, she said carefully, the humans were not as technologically primitive as we believed. The Vulcan commander turned to her with suspicion in his black eyes. What do you mean, diplomat? Lead that my people are ... adaptable. We learn quickly from our mistakes and from our enemies. Before the commander could respond, alarms began screaming throughout the ship. The tactical display lit up with new contacts. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace all around them. Human ships, hundreds of them, but these were not the crude vessels the Vultans had been fighting for 3 years. These ships were sleek and deadly, armed with weapons that made Vulcan technology look primitive. They moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single vast machine. How is this possible? The commander whispered. Dawu stood up slowly. The mask of weakness fell from her face like discarded clothing. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had never really been defeated. "'Cause you never fought our real fleet," she said. "You fought our decoys while we built these." The space battle that followed was not really a battle at all. It was a demonstration. The human ships moved through the Vulcan formation like sharks through a school of fish, or weapons cut through alien shields and armor as if they were not even there. Combat pilot Jiang Subin flew her fighter through the chaos with deadly precision. Her ship was a work of art, combining human innovation with alien technology in ways the Vultans had never imagined. The enemy fighters that tried to engage her were simply outclassed. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader," she said into her communication system. "The enemy fighters are using the same tactics we observed during the Beta Centauri engagement. Counterformation Delta should be effective." It was. The human pilots had studied Vultan fighter tactics for 3 years. They knew every maneuver, every strategy, every weakness. The alien pilots found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know their moves before they made them, on the surface of Mars. Captain Yu Minho watched Vulcan reinforcements drop from orbit directly into prepared killing zones. His forces had been planning this for months. Every landing zone was pre-targeted. Every approach route was covered by hidden weapons. "They are still using the same drop patterns," reported engineer Choi Yujin. "Same formations, same timing. They have learned nothing." Minho nodded. The Vultans were a powerful species, but they were not adaptable. They had conquered other races through superior technology and brute force. They had never faced an enemy that could learn and evolve faster than they could adapt. "All units, engage," Minho ordered. The Vulcan dropships fell from the sky like burning meteors. Not one reached the ground intact, back on Earth. Dr. Lee Hansel watched the battle reports flow in from across human space. Every hidden base was now active. Every sleeper agent was in motion. The vast network he had spent 15 years building was finally showing its true power. "Project Lazarus, Phase 3 is complete," he announced to the empty command center. "All primary objectives achieved. Initiating Phase 4. Phase 4 was a revelation that would break the Vulcan Empire's will to fight. Hansol's fingers moved across his keyboard, sending signals to installations that had been waiting in the deepest parts of space. The signals reached their destinations and awakened something vast and terrible. In the darkness between stars, massive constructions began to move. Ships the size of cities, weapons that could crack planets. A fleet that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. The fleet that humanity had been building while the Vultans thought they were winning the war. Admiral Kim Tae-ho received the activation signal aboard his flagship. Around him, His officers smiled for the first time in 3 years. They had played their parts perfectly, pretending to be desperate refugees while they prepared for this moment. All ships, Taeho announced. This is Admiral Kim. You are cleared to reveal your true capabilities. Show the galaxy what the human fleet really looks like. Across human space, ships that have been hiding their real power suddenly showed their teeth. Weapon systems that have been disguised as cargo pods deployed. Shields that have been running at minimum power flared to full strength. Engines that had been pretending to be damaged roared to life. The Votans found themselves facing an enemy that was not just larger than they had expected, but more advanced than they had believed possible. Human technology that seemed to anticipate their moves. Human tactics that countered their strategies before they could implement them. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 200-year history. Representatives from 47 different species sat in stunned silence as the reports came in. The humans, who had been written off as a defeated race just weeks ago, were systematically destroying the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. Ambassador Kelthera of the Centauri Federation spoke first, her blue skin pale with shock. The intelligence reports must be wrong. The human fleet was destroyed at Proxima. We saw the battle recordings ourselves. The recordings were real, replied General Mordok of the Rigel Defense Corps. But apparently we were not seeing the real human fleet. On the massive display screen, tactical information flowed in real time from across the galaxy. Red markers showed Voltan positions. Blue markers showed human forces. Every hour, more red markers disappeared, while blue ones multiplied like a spreading infection. Look at these numbers, whispered Trade Minister Yelinari. The humans have recaptured 18 star systems in the past week. 18. The Voltans took 3 years to conquer them originally. The truth was becoming impossible to ignore. Humanity had not been defeated. They had been playing a game so deep and complex that the galaxy's greatest minds had failed to see it coming. Admiral Kim Taeho stood on the bridge of the Yuean Retribution and watched Votan ships flee before his advancing fleet. The massive alien dreadnoughts that had once seemed invincible now ran like scared animals. Their weapons, which had once cut through human armor with ease, barely scratched the shields of the new human vessels. Sir, reported his tactical officer, the Votan fleet is requesting permission to surrender. Taeho looked at the display. 12 Voltan ships surrounded by 40 human vessels. The aliens had nowhere to run and no hope of victory. 3 months ago, those same 12 ships could have destroyed his entire fleet. Now they were begging for mercy. Tell them to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded, Taeho ordered, and send a message to Earth. Tell President Park that the Kepler system is secure. The message reached Earth within hours. President Park Sojan read it in her office, which was no longer a bunker deep underground. The Voltans had been driven from Earth's orbit 2 weeks ago. The reconstruction of the major cities had already begun, but Park was not celebrating yet. She knew the galaxy was watching. Every species that had abandoned humanity during the dark days was now scrambling to decide which side to support. Some were offering aid to the human war effort. Others were quietly reaching out to what remained of the Voltine Empire. "Ma'am," said her aide, entering the office with a datapad. "We have received formal requests for alliance from 6 different species. The Andromedans are offering to share their quantum technology. The Vegan Republic wants to provide medical supplies. Even the Trade Federation is asking about economic partnerships." Park smiled grimly. How quickly they change their tune when they think we might win. What should I tell them? Tell them we will consider their offers after the war is over. Right now, we have more important things to worry about. The most important thing was Dr. Lee Hansaw's latest report. the creator of Project Lazarus, had been working without sleep for days, coordinating the massive operation that was reshaping the galaxy. His hidden network of bases and factories was producing weapons and ships at rates that seemed impossible. The manufacturing centers are operating at 120% capacity. Han Sol reported during their daily briefing. We are producing 3 new ships for every one the Voltons destroy. Our weapon systems are advancing faster than their defenses can adapt. What about the special project? Park asked. Han Sol's tired eyes lit up with something that might have been pride or madness. The Prometheus initiative is ahead of schedule. We should be ready for deployment within the month. Park nodded. The Prometheus initiative was humanity's final revelation. The thing that would show the galaxy exactly what humans were capable of when they stopped pretending to be weak. On the medical station orbiting Titan, Dr. Kim Dudgeon worked on her latest patients. They were not injured soldiers or civilian refugees. They were volunteers for the enhancement program. Men and women who wanted to become something more than human. The neural interface is integrating perfectly, she reported to her assistants. Reaction times are improved by 300%. Strength is increased by a factor of 5. The subjects are showing no signs of rejection or psychological instability. The enhanced humans were part of Han Sol's master plan. Soldiers who could think faster, move quicker, and fight longer than any normal human. Each one was worth 10 regular troops in combat. They were the next step in human evolution, accelerated and controlled. But they were also something else. They were a message to the galaxy, a demonstration that humanity was not content to simply survive. They were determined to thrive, to grow, to become something unprecedented. Captain Yoon Minho led a squad of enhanced soldiers through the ruins of New Geneva on Europa. The Voltan occupation force had been driven out weeks ago, but pockets of resistance remained. His team moved through the rubble like ghosts, faster and quieter than any normal human could manage. Contact ahead, whispered Sergeant Park Dalho. Through the neural link, 12 Voltons, heavy weapons. They have civilians as shields. Minho could see the situation through his enhanced vision as clearly as if he were there himself. The Voltons were desperate now, using tactics they would have considered beneath them when they thought they were winning. They had learned to fear human soldiers, and that fear was making them cruel. Take them, Minho ordered. The enhanced soldiers moved like liquid death. They flowed around obstacles, through shadows, between moments. The Voltons never saw them coming. Within seconds, 12 alien soldiers were dead, and 30 human civilians were free. This is Phoenix Leader, Minho reported. Europa is clear. All Voltan forces eliminated. The report went to Engineer Choi Yujin, who was coordinating liberation efforts across the Jupiter system. Her technical expertise had been crucial in the rapid advancement of human technology. She had taken apart captured Voltan equipment and rebuilt it better, faster, deadlier. Confirmed, Phoenix Leader, she replied. All outer colonies are now secure. We are ready to begin Phase 5. Phase 5 was the offensive. For months, humanity had been playing defense even while winning. They had been content to drive the Voltans back to reclaim their stolen worlds. But now it was time to take the fight to the enemy. The Voltan Empire controlled hundreds of worlds across dozens of star systems. They had conquered species after species, building their power through fear and superior technology. For 1,000 years, they had been the dominant force in this part of the galaxy that was about to change. Combat. Pilot Jiang Suban received her new orders while refueling at the hidden base inside the asteroid belt. She was no longer flying defensive missions or escort duties. She was being assigned to Strike Force Alpha, the human fleet that would carry the war to the Voltan homeworld itself. Su Ben called her squadron leader as she prepared for launch. You have seen the target briefings? Yes, sir. Vultan Prime, their capital world, population 12 billion. The Vultans showed no mercy to our civilians. They bombed our cities, enslaved our people, tried to wipe us out completely. What they did to the children on Mars colony still gives me nightmares. Subin's jaw tightened. She remembered the reports from Mars, the mass graves, the execution sites, the laboratories where Vultan scientists had experimented on human prisoners, like they were animals. I understand, sir. Okay, because we are not going there to conquer. We are going there to deliver a message the entire galaxy will understand. The message was simple. Humanity had tried being peaceful. They had tried diplomacy, trade, cooperation. The galaxy had responded by abandoning them when they seemed weak, and now begging for alliance when they showed strength. It was time to teach the galaxy a lesson about what happened when you threatened human extinction. Supreme Overlord Nextdual sat in his command center on Vultan Prime and watched his empire crumble. Reports came in every hour of more defeats, more retreats, more systems lost to the advancing human fleet. His admirals begged for reinforcements that no longer existed. His scientists pleaded for time to develop new weapons to match human technology. But Nextdual knew it was too late. The humans had not just outfought the Vultan military. They had outfought it, outlanded, outmaneuvered it at every turn. They had played a game of war so sophisticated that the Vultans had not even realized they were losing until it was over. "My lord," said his aide, "the human fleet has been detected at the edge of our system. They will be here within days." Nextdual closed his black eyes. He had lived for 300 years and conquered dozens of worlds. He had thought he understood war, understood power, understood victory. The humans had taught him how wrong he could be. "Send a message to the human fleet," he said, finally. "Tell them we wish to discuss terms." The reply came back within hours. It was short and delivered by Admiral Kim Tae-ho himself. "Supreme Overlord Nextdual, you had your chance to discuss terms. 72 hours, you said. Unconditional surrender, you demanded. Complete subjugation, you required. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Vultan Prime like a gathering storm. Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at the world that had once commanded an empire. The planet was beautiful in its own alien way, purple oceans under a red sun, silver cities that stretched across continents, 12 billion Vultans living in the heart of what had been the galaxy's greatest. Military power, all of it was now at the mercy of humanity. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we are receiving surrender signals from the orbital defense platforms. The planetary shield generators are powering down. They are not going to fight." Tae-ho was not surprised. The Vultan military had learned what fighting humans really meant. Their fleets were scattered across the galaxy, running from human forces that seemed to appear everywhere at once. Their colonies had fallen one by one to soldiers who fought with impossible skill and weapons that turned Vultan technology into scrap metal. "Open a channel to the surface," Tae-ho ordered. "I want to speak to Supreme Overlord Nextdual." The alien, a leader who appeared on the screen, looked nothing like the confident conqueror who had demanded humanity's surrender months ago. His gray skin was pale, and his black eyes held the hollow look of total defeat. He spoke from what appeared to be a bunker deep underground. "Admiral Kim," Nextdual said, and his voice carried no trace of the arrogance it once held. "I am prepared to discuss surrender terms." Tae-ho replied, "You are prepared to accept them." The terms were simple and absolute. The Vultan Empire would cease to exist. All military forces would surrender immediately. All conquered species would be freed. All Vultan technology would be turned over to human control. The Vultan people would be relocated to designated worlds under human supervision. It was exactly what the Vultans had demanded of humanity. but in reverse. These terms are ... harsh, Nexthul said carefully. They are the same terms you offered us, Teho replied. The only difference is that we are capable of enforcing them. On Earth, President Park Sojin prepared for the most important speech of her life. In a few hours, she would address not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. Every species would be watching. Every government would be analyzing her words for hints of humanity's future intentions. She stood in the rebuilt chambers of the United Earth Nations. The room had been destroyed during the Voltan bombardment and rebuilt in just 6 weeks, but it was not the same as before. The new chamber was larger, grander, designed to hold representatives from dozens of worlds rather than just Earth, because Earth was no longer just the capital of humanity. It was about to become the capital of something much larger. Ma'am, said her aide, the galactic networks are ready. Estimated audience is over 2 trillion beings across 400 star systems. Park nodded. 2 trillion beings would hear what she had to say. They would learn that the galaxy had changed forever, and that humanity was the force that had changed it. Ladies and gentlemen of the galaxy, she began, her voice carrying across space to worlds she had never seen. 6 months ago, the Voltan Empire declared victory over humanity. They announced that our species was defeated, broken, ready to serve as slaves to our batters. The pause that followed was filled with the weight of recent history. Every being listening knew what had happened. Next, they were wrong. Not just about our defeat, but about the nature of humanity itself. We are not a species that accepts slavery. We are not a people who surrender to extinction. And faced with annihilation, we do not break. We adapt. We learn. Become something our enemies never expected. In his hidden laboratory, Dr. Lee Hansel listened to the speech while monitoring the final stages of the Prometheus initiative. His life's work was almost complete. Project Lazarus had been just the beginning. What came next would reshape not just the galaxy, but the universe itself. Phase 6 is ready for deployment, he reported to his assistants. All systems are green. The network is stable. Phase 6 was humanity's final revelation. Hidden bases throughout the galaxy began powering up systems that had been built in secret over 15 years. Not just weapons or ships, but something far more profound. A technology that would make humanity not just the dominant species in the galaxy, but the guardians of all life within it. The Voltan Empire has fallen, President Park continued in her speech. But this is not about revenge. This is about establishing a new order, an order where no species will ever again face extinction because they appear weak to those who consider themselves strong. Captain Yoon Min Ho stood in the ruins of the Voltan Command Center on Mars, the same building where alien officers had planned. The subjugation of humanity now served as the headquarters for human occupation forces, but the humans were not ruling through fear and oppression as the Voltans had. Status report, Minho said to his officers. All Voltan personnel have been processed and relocated, reported Lieutenant Choi Eugene. The civilian population is cooperating with reconstruction efforts. No incidents of resistance or sabotage. What about the other species? The ones the Voltans conquered before us. They're requesting immediate liberation. The Andromedans want their colonies back. The Vegan Republic is asking for human protection against future invasion. 17 different species have applied for membership in what they're calling the human hegemony. Minho smiled grimly. The galaxy was learning a new lesson. Humanity did not conquer for the sake of conquest. They conquered to prevent others from conquering. They ruled to prevent others from ruling badly. Agent Seo Dawu walked through the halls of the former Voltan High Command. The building had once been the center of an empire that controlled a third of the galaxy. Now it housed the administrative offices of the Human Colonial Authority. The transition had been remarkably smooth. The integration protocols are working perfectly, she reported to Admiral Tejo via secure communication. Former Voltan worlds are accepting human authority without significant resistance. The promise of protection from future conquest is very appealing to species that remember life before the Voltan Empire. What about the Voltans themselves? Surprisingly cooperative. I think they understand that human rule is far more merciful than anything they offered their conquered peoples. We are not enslaving them or experimenting on their children. We are simply ensuring they never again have the power to threaten others. Combat pilot Jiang Su-Ben flew patrol missions over the former Voltan homeworld. Her fighter was one of hundreds maintaining orbital security while the transition of power continued below. The planet was peaceful now, its people adapting to a new reality where they were no longer the masters of the galaxy. Phoenix Squadron, this is Control, came the voice from her communication system. You have new orders. Report to the Prometheus station for special assignment briefing. Subin had heard rumors about the Prometheus station, a massive construction hidden in deep space, built during the years when humanity pretended to be losing the war. Now it was time to see what Dr. Hansal and his team had really been working on. The station was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was not built for war or defense. It was built for something far more ambitious. She docked her fighter. Subin realized she was looking at humanity's true masterpiece. Welcome to the future, said Dr. Hansel as he greeted her in the main corridor. What you see here is not just a space station. It is the heart of a network that spans the entire galaxy. A system that will monitor every star system, every planet, every species that might pose a threat to galactic peace. You mean you're watching everyone? We are protecting everyone. The Prometheus network will detect any species that develops the technology and ambition to threaten others with extinction. When that happens, we will be there to stop them before they can begin. Subin understood. Humanity was not content to simply rule the galaxy. They were positioning themselves as the eternal guardians against genocide, ensuring that no species would ever again face what humanity had faced. President Park's speech reached its conclusion as the galaxy listened in stunned silence. To those species who stood with us during our darkest hour, you will find humanity to be generous allies and faithful friends. To those who abandoned us when we seemed weak, you will find us willing to forgive, but not to forget. To those who might consider threatening any species with extinction in the future, you will find us watching, waiting, and ready to respond. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle across 2 trillion minds. The galaxy has learned. What happens when you threaten humanity with genocide? We do not simply survive. We ensure that such threats never arise again. We become the guardians, not just of our own species, but of all life that chooses peace over conquest. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, governments and individuals contemplated the new reality. Humanity had not just won a war. They had redefined what it meant to be the dominant species in the galaxy supreme. Overlord Nexul sat in his detention cell on a human prison ship and wondered how everything had gone so wrong. His species had ruled for 1,000 years through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. They had conquered dozens of races and built an empire that seemed destined to last forever.